I've had a coach for the last 2 years and really helpful. She's really good at being like putting guardrails, being like, "Are you sure this is what you want to do?" And you mentioned the 360. I think coaches and people around us who are interested in helping us succeed, they show us something that we kind of see in ourselves, but don't actually, or we're not aware of it completely, or we haven't internalized it. Like somebody could say to me, "You're really good at X, Y, Z," and go into it, and I might know that, like on a surface level, but until somebody talks to me, I'm like, "Oh, that defines a big part of me." Have you ever read Lord of the Rings?
Mm-hmm.
There's a scene which there's one sentence which jumps out at me. It's super weird. First Fellowship of the Ring, they're walking up the mountain, um, and I think it's Frodo, and they're walking down snow, and they're just trudging along, and Legolas is walking on the snow because he's an elf, of course. And Frodo says something which he saw that he was not wearing shoes or something. He saw that, and he notices for the first time. He had seen that thing before when Legolas was not wearing shoes, but he just noticed it. It like clicked for him. And it's so interesting to have people around us, like coaches, who look deep into us and be like, "You do this," and you're like, "Yeah, I do," and they're like, "No, you do this on a regular basis," and they're like, and we're like, "Oh, yes, it is." I find it interesting. Sorry, I had to build a Lord of the Rings reference.
No, yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. On the coach piece, I would say that it really depends on the individual, right? Like, because many of us have faults and weaknesses that we need to work on, and the coach can kind of help keep us accountable and notice those things and give us tools to address them. But also, there's this element of how do we navigate challenges, right? And me personally, I'm fairly intuitive. So a lot of times, whenever I've gone to these kind of workshops where someone's like, "What's your biggest challenge right now?" I always think to myself like, "Well, I don't know if I have a big challenge right now," because usually if I can name it, if it's very clear to me, I've already got solutions in place and a
Mm,
plan and everything's working. But the problems I'm unable to name are the ones that I'm struggling with, right? Because my subconscious is still chewing on them. And so for me, that's where, if I'm in that state where I'm kind of wrestling with something and it hasn't clarified from me, that's when a coach is really helpful because then I'm talking through this like very amorphous thing that I haven't been able to label and totally understand yet. But then we can kind of pull that to the forefront and work on it in a little more ambiguous state.
I've heard the term thought partner, which is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Having somebody who can just you can talk to and think out loud, and a coach can be that, a friend, a coworker, a partner. There's a lot of ways that we can get that thought partnership. And it seems like what you said about peers who run into agencies, that's also a good source
Yes.
of it.
Yeah, being able to see what struggles they run into. There are different groups out there, masterminds and forums that you can pay money to go attend, join these groups. And